It began with a quiet knock on an iron gate, somewhere deep in the English countryside. No cameras, no press, just the soft rustle of uniforms and the unmistakable insignia of the Royal Guard. Inside, behind manicured hedges and an old stone archway, sat a mansion that hadn't been mentioned in any royal record. Until now. Whispers say it belonged to Queen Camilla, a private retreat built long before her coronation. But when the guards broke in, what they found beneath its marble floors wasn't luxury, it was history, as best-kept secret. The missing crown jewels of Queen Elizabeth II. Was it a royal cover-up, or a centuries-old mystery finally unearthed? Either way, tonight you'll hear the truth the palace never intended to be told. Before we uncover this royal enigma, take a moment to hit like, subscribe, and share this story with anyone who loves history, mystery, or the quiet drama of the crown. Your support helps bring hidden truths to light, one untold story at a time. All right, ready to step behind the palace doors? Let's begin. It began on a fog-draped morning in Wiltshire, England, the kind of morning where even the sunlight seemed hesitant to touch the ground, where history itself felt like it was holding its breath. Down a narrow country road, beyond fields of silent horses and ancient oaks, a convoy of dark vehicles rolled through the mist. Inside, men in crimson uniforms sat in disciplined silence. The Royal Guard, summoned not for ceremony, but for secrecy. The lead car stopped before a rusted iron gate. A brass plate, weathered and faintly green with age, read simply, Ashcombe Manor. No royal insignia, no press record. Yet everyone in that convoy knew what the whispers in London had called it. Camilla's hidden mansion. The estate had once belonged to a noble family in the early 1900s, long before the woman who would become Queen Camilla ever laid eyes on it. But locals had stories, soft-spoken tales told in pubs over half-empty glasses. They said that after the late Queen's passing, delivery trucks began arriving at odd hours, that marble slabs were being replaced, that lights burned in the windows long after midnight. No one questioned it aloud. In Britain, you don't question the royals. You just notice and then pretend you didn't. But someone did notice, and this time they didn't stay quiet. An anonymous letter reached a senior official inside the Crown Estate's security division. The contents were short and unnerving. There are things buried at Ashcombe that the world was never meant to see again. It was signed only with an initial, E. When the gates creaked open that morning, it wasn't the usual polished diplomacy of the palace. It was steel, suspicion, and the faint ache of betrayal. The royal guards moved in pairs, silent and methodical, their boots crunching over wet gravel as they spread across the estate. The mansion itself stood tall and gray against the mist, ivy climbing its stone walls, a single lantern flickering above the door like an eye that refused to close. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of old furniture polish and lavender. Portraits of unfamiliar aristocrats lined the corridor, their painted eyes following each movement. One of the guards, a young man named Corporal Allen, whispered, "You really think she kept something here?" His superior didn't answer, because none of them wanted to say it out loud. Not about the Queen Consort. Minutes later, the search began. Room by room, the guards uncovered nothing unusual. At first, a music room, a library filled with weathered books, even a sitting room where teacups still rested on coasters as if someone had left in a hurry. But then, the lead investigator noticed something strange. In the main hall, beneath an enormous chandelier, the marble floor was uneven, a subtle ridge just half an inch, but unnatural in a house this precisely built. He knelt, running his gloved fingers along the seam. "Bring me the scanner," he said. Moments later, a handheld radar confirmed it. There was a hollow chamber beneath the floor about 4 meters deep, and that was when the atmosphere changed. The silence became electric. The air suddenly felt historic. As workers carefully lifted one marble slab after another, the mist outside thickened, pressing against the windows like an audience of ghosts. Dust rose in the air as a dark, narrow stairway emerged, spiraling down into blackness. One of the guards muttered, "Why would she build something like this?" The officer replied quietly, Because some secrets aren't meant to be left upstairs. The descent was slow, each step echoing in the chamber like a heartbeat. Their lanterns flickered against cold stone walls carved centuries ago. When they reached the bottom, they found what looked like an old cellar. But the smell was wrong. It wasn't wine or rot. It was something metallic, something preserved. Then a faint glimmer caught their eyes. Tucked inside a dust-covered crate were velvet pouches, each marked with a royal crest. The officer approached, his breath slowing, his voice breaking the stillness. Document everything, no one touches a thing. But even before he opened the first pouch, he already knew. He could feel the weight of what history had just placed in their hands. Outside, the palace had gone quiet. Word had reached a small circle, discreetly, cautiously. The queen consort was unavailable for comment. The press hadn't yet caught scent of the story. But inside those marble corridors in London, a storm was brewing.
Why was there a sealed chamber beneath Camilla's private residence? And what could possibly be hidden there that would require the Crown's most trusted guards to raid one of their own? The whispers returned, louder this time, circling through staff, journalists, and old aristocrats who owed the palace nothing. Some called it a misunderstanding. Others called it retribution. But behind closed doors, one man, a retired archivist from the royal collection, said something few wanted to believe. If the jewels are where I think they are, then someone has been guarding more than just treasure. They've been guarding a truth. By sunset, the convoy returned to London. No press photos, no official statement, just silence. The crates were sealed, labeled under royal confidentiality, and transported to a secure wing inside the Tower of London. Only 3 people saw what was inside. And when the lid of the first crate opened, there, nestled in deep blue velvet, lay the impossible. The imperial state crown, the sovereign's orb, and the scepter with a cross, all objects publicly listed as in preservation after the Queen's passing. But these weren't replicas. These were the originals. The room fell silent. If these had been hidden at Ashcombe, then what exactly had been displayed at Queen Elizabeth's funeral? And more importantly, why were they hidden at all? The crates had arrived under moonlight. They were placed in the Tower of London's most secure vault, the same ancient stone room that had once guarded king's ransoms, queen's tears, and centuries of British power. The air inside that vault felt heavy, almost alive, as if it carried every whisper the monarchy had ever tried to silence. And that night, when the locks turned and the steel doors closed behind them, 3 people stood alone before history itself. Sir Jonathan Hale, Chief Royal Archivist, Major Thomas Reed, Head of Security for the Royal Guard, and Lady Amelia Wren, the Queen's personal historian, a quiet woman whose loyalty to the Crown had never once wavered. Together, they approached the first crate. The velvet pouch was unsealed with gloved precision. As the lid opened, a shimmer filled the dim light, a reflection of gold, sapphire, and diamond so pure it almost blinded the room. Sir Jonathan stepped forward, his voice barely a whisper. "My God, it's the original crown." It wasn't just the beauty of it, it was the impossibility. Because the real imperial state crown was supposed to be resting safely in the royal collection vault, catalogued and sealed under the late Queen's name. Yet, here it was, dusted with age, faintly scratched, and undeniably authentic. Every gem was where it had always been. The Cullinan II diamond glinting at the center, the Black Prince's ruby glowing like fire in a storm. Lady Amelia's eyes welled up as she whispered, "I saw this crown on Her Majesty's head the day she addressed the nation for the last time. But this feels older, worn, loved." The guards exchanged uneasy glances. If the real jewels had been hidden beneath Camilla's mansion, then what had the world seen during the Queen's final days? Was it a duplicate, meant to protect the originals? Or something more deliberate, something personal? Major Reed broke the silence. "Search the remaining crates. I want a full inventory." The next container held the sovereign's orb, gold, encrusted with emeralds and pearls, a symbol of divine right. The third revealed the scepter with a cross, holding the Cullinan eye, the largest close-cut diamond in existence. Each artifact carried a story, and every story carried a question. Lady Amelia leaned closer to the crown, her fingers trembling as she noticed a slip of parchment folded beneath the velvet lining. It was brittle, yellowed, sealed with wax. A royal seal. Sir Jonathan broke it open with care. Inside were just 3 lines of handwritten script. If they are to reign, let them do so without the burden of what we kept. These belong not to us, but to truth. Ea, Elizabeth Regina. The silence that followed was suffocating. The late Queen had written it herself. Sir Jonathan sat down slowly, running a hand over his face. She didn't want them destroyed, but hidden. Lady Amelia nodded. She must have feared what would happen if they remained in the palace. But why? Major Reed pressed. What could possibly make the Queen hide her own crown? Amelia's eyes softened. Because maybe the jewels weren't just jewels anymore. She looked toward the crown again. These pieces were witnesses. They were with her through every coronation, every war, every loss. Perhaps they carried memories she no longer wanted displayed for the world to see. It sounded poetic, but beneath her words was a quiet suspicion none of them wanted to voice. 2 weeks passed before the public even heard a whisper of the discovery. The official statement was brief. An internal review of Crown Estate artifacts is underway following a recent archival recovery. But behind palace walls, the tension was unmistakable. Queen Camilla had remained silent, refusing all public appearances. Prince William was reportedly in consultation with the Privy Council. And among the staff, hushed phrases like the hidden vault and Elizabeth's last wish began to circulate. Rumors multiplied faster than the palace could contain them. Some said the jewels were hidden to prevent them from falling into political hands. Others whispered that the late Queen had discovered something in their history, an origin too dark for the public to ever know. A historian from Oxford, Dr. Harold Greaves, offered a chilling theory in an off-record interview. The British crown jewels are more than symbols, they are records. Every stone, every engraving carries a date, a purpose, and a name. If the Queen hid them, it might have been to bury a secret about their true past. Meanwhile, back at Ashcombe Manor, forensic teams unearthed more than dust and marble. They found ledgers, hundreds of them, cataloging personal letters, old sketches, and rare artifacts dating back to the early 1900s. Among them, one entry stood out. Restoration complete, replicas commissioned, originals sealed per Her Majesty's directive, confidential until second notice. The entry was dated March 2021, just months before Queen Elizabeth's final public address. Lady Amelia closed the book slowly. She knew exactly what she was doing, she whispered. This wasn't a mistake. It was a final command. That realization struck the palace like a quiet earthquake. Queen Elizabeth, known for her calm composure and unshakable devotion, had orchestrated the hiding of her own legacy out of sight even from her heirs. Camilla's mansion had been chosen not for secrecy, but for symbolism. It was private, quiet, and away from the watchful eyes of the state. The late Queen hadn't been concealing treasure. She had been protecting meaning, preserving history in its purest form, untouched by politics, by spectacle, by inheritance. And yet, one question still lingered like a shadow over the Tower vaults. If the Queen hid her jewels to protect truth, then what truth was so dangerous it had to be buried beneath stone in silence? In the days that followed, something unexpected occurred. Lady Amelia received an envelope in her private study. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single photo, Queen Elizabeth standing in the gardens of Windsor, smiling softly, holding something small and radiant in her hands. On the back, in the same delicate handwriting as before, were the words, "One day they will understand." Amelia's breath caught. It wasn't a message to the palace. It was a message to us, the world, the people who would one day question the stories written in marble and gold. And for the first time, Amelia realized maybe this wasn't about treasure at all. Maybe it was about legacy. The legacy of a woman who ruled not just a kingdom, but her own truth. Weeks after the raid, Buckingham Palace remained wrapped in silence, the kind that doesn't just fill holes, but weighs on the air like unspoken guilt. Outside, the British public whispered. Inside, the royal family waited. Every window of the palace glowed dimly that evening. In one of them, behind drawn curtains and a desk scattered with letters, Queen Camilla sat alone, staring at a single envelope embossed with the late Queen's royal seal. It had been delivered to her privately. No one knew by whom. The handwriting was unmistakable, Elizabeth R. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The letter inside was simple, but what it said would change how the crown was remembered forever. My dear Camilla, by the time you read this, the jewels will no longer be in the palace. You may hear whispers, perhaps even orders, to retrieve them. Do not be alarmed. They are safe. You see, the crown has always been both a gift and a curse. Its beauty binds nations together, but its weight, it can bury a person's soul beneath duty. I hid them not out of fear, but out of love. Love for the monarchy, yes, but more for the woman beneath it. For once in my life, I wanted to leave something behind that wasn't controlled by protocol, by politics, or by history's gaze. I wanted peace, not as a queen, but as Elizabeth. Camilla's eyes blurred with tears. For a long while, she couldn't move. Outside, the palace clock struck midnight, 12 soft echoes marking the end of another royal day. But this night felt different. It felt human. She folded the letter, pressed it gently to her lips, and whispered, "Rest now, Lilibet. They'll understand one day." For the first time since the raid, she understood. The queen hadn't hidden the jewels out of secrecy or guilt. She'd done it because even the most powerful woman in the world wanted one small corner of her life to remain untouched, sacred. A place where the crown didn't define her, where Elizabeth the woman could breathe, unjudged and unseen. The next morning, a quiet decision was made within the palace. No press release, no public ceremony. But those who worked close to the queen consort noticed something subtle. A new portrait hanging in the east corridor. It showed Queen Elizabeth smiling softly, without the crown, dressed simply in lavender, her eyes calm and bright. Beneath the frame, a small brass plaque read, "Truth needs no jewels." Few noticed it at first, but for those who did, it felt like a message from one queen to another. And though the jewels were later restored to the tower, displayed under glass and guarded by ceremony, something about them felt different, because now everyone who looked upon them didn't just see gold and diamonds. They saw a story of love, burden, and a quiet human longing hidden beneath centuries of royal glitter. In the following months, historians began to call it the lost legacy. Documentaries aired, theories multiplied, but one detail remained unspoken in all official accounts. No one ever revealed where the jewels had truly been found. Ashcombe Manor was quietly sold, its gates locked forever. The underground chamber was sealed with stone, and the letter from Queen Elizabeth, the one that explained everything, was placed in the royal archives under permanent restriction. Only 2 people were allowed to read it again, Queen Camilla and Prince William. When he did, those who saw him said he wept, not as a prince, but as a grandson. Years later, when a journalist asked Queen Camilla about the infamous hidden mansion, she smiled softly and said just 5 words. "Some treasures are meant to rest." That was all she ever said. And in that moment, the country finally stopped asking. Because deep down, the people understood. The jewels had been found. But something greater had been uncovered, the reminder that even behind the crown, even beneath centuries of duty and ritual, there beats a heart that just wants to be. A mother, a daughter, a woman who once ruled the world, and yet longed to walk it quietly, unseen. That was Queen Elizabeth's final legacy. Not her crown, not her throne, but her humanity. Clap aboard final outro, for YouTube, tilde 200 words. And so ends one of the most mysterious and emotional chapters in royal history, the lost crown jewels of Queen Elizabeth II. Not a tale of theft, not a scandal, but a love letter from one queen to another. Sometimes truth doesn't glitter. It whispers. It hides beneath marble floors, beneath titles, beneath centuries of expectation, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. If this story moved you, if it made you see the crown not as gold, but as a burden carried with grace, then don't let it fade. Hit like, subscribe, and share this story so others can feel that same quiet awe. Because history isn't written by monuments or jewels. It's written by hearts. And the most powerful hearts are often the ones that choose to hide. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, even royalty dreams of freedom.